Hello YouTube, first video ever. Jason over at DIY Audio Store. It's very kind, friendly, helped make this happen. Anyways, today I have the WHAMMY headphone amplifier kit. I haven't seen a video of put together yet, so I wanted to go ahead and do that to show my appreciation for his help. And I'll go ahead and walk you through it. So please forgive any of the bad lighting, poor sound, whatever. Just hopefully help someone out. I'm going to walk you through my little setup here. Nothing special, but I got some stuff to play around with. Earlier I was testing a switch that I'll be using for the Mesmerize B1 buffer and testing the LED dimming with the pot there. Some various stuff. Here's my helping hands. Magnifying glass, various hands. It's got a light underneath. Can change between warm light and cool light. It's got 3 different modes: warm, cool, and then mixed. Various brightness levels there. Just my multimeter. Some random box of resistors for testing. Here's my iron. My solder there, various tips, lab power supply, some cutting tools. Here you will recognize the WHAMMY board. It's beautiful, dark, black and gold. Here, this came in the box. Here's the schematic, the power section. On the reverse, the audio section. And additionally, the parts list. I went through and verified each of the parts were there, as expected they were. I'll show you those here in a sec. Here are the parts all laid out, at least most of them. Here in the static bag, or anti-static bag, the semiconductors. Here are all the resistors laid out and sorted from least to most. I measured them all and they're all within spec, so that's always wonderful. Various capacitors, LEDs, some caps, some larger caps, mid-sized ones there, diodes, some of the hardware, wiring. Here's the toroidal transformer, dual primary. Here's a filtered power inlet from Schroeder. Here's the Alps pot, volume knob, heat sinks up there, and this is all the box it came in. A bit of padding for protection, and the blue here wrapped the circuit board also to protect it. I will be following the DIY guide that Saul has put together on the DIY audio site. And I'll be doing nothing special. I'll just follow those instructions and I'll do the default build. So hopefully you'll learn something as I do. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So step 3, 1 and 2 is talk about the schematic, the board. Step 3, voltage selection. I'm in the US, so I'm wiring this for 120 operation, which means I'm going from 0 to 0 and 120 to 120 per the guide, and 18 gauge stranded wire barely fits, so that's what I have on hand. I also have 22 gauge. Probably would have been fine. We're not drawing too much current here. I chose white because it's what I have on hand. Also got a few other colors, but so just making some little legs here. go across. Little jumpers. Twisting the ends tight just because the 18 gauge barely fits in the hole. So for 120 operation, essentially this transformer is getting wired in parallel. So that's why there's these two jumpers here. If you're in 220, 240, you go from the inner 0 to the 120. Let me double check, yeah. And that would put you in series. Alright, I had this in there earlier. Maybe I'll go to the 22 gauge. This gives me too much trouble. Try to make sure I get all the strands. Try and get all the strands in the hole. Maybe I should have tinned it. That might have helped. Try this again. Whatever. One little strand didn't make it, but I'll live with that. Okay. So first jumper. Snip this little piece off. Jumper 2. Solid core probably would have worked better too, but I don't have any of that, unfortunately. Tucking it into the hole best I can. That works. Trimming off this stray wire. Okay, so got my jumpers there. I'll go ahead and solder those on a little bit later. Might as well do that now. Turn on my iron. It takes a second to warm up. I don't know the best way to do this, but I just kind of drop a little bit around here, and it gives me something to hold on to while I'm soldering. Okay, sorry about that. I already messed up on my recording, but I went ahead and soldered these two ends in the back. I used the flat side of my iron because it's a little bit thicker gauge wire, so it's taking more heat. I just kind of, where it cut out, I was just kind of spooling up a bit of my solder together so it's easier to hold and manage while I'm working. I go ahead and have my two parallel jumpers in place. Should be good to go. Looks like it went okay. So the next step, IAC socket. Here they include a shredder socket. It's fused, switched, filtered, kind of all in one. Small packaging. It is a little big, and I am using the Hammond case, so this is gonna fit like right in here, and it's gonna be really tight. It's kind of gonna be a little annoying because there's gonna be very little space for the RCA jacks, the Hammond case, but I'll go worry about that when I get there. So it says IC socket fused on the live, switch to live if I use a power switch. I do want to use a power switch. There's one already built into the back, so there'll be two, essentially a master. And I want one in the front, blue LED. I do have some selected already. I've been playing with those. Hopefully I'll get to that later. All right, I'll go ahead and skip down to step 6. So we want the rectifier diodes, filter resistors, snubber cap, and the filter caps. So I'll go ahead and collect those off my table right over there, and I'll be back. Just a few little gadgets I have. I've never used these before, but I wanted to make this look a little nice. So I got these spacer tools, lead forming tools actually to be correct, by Probe Master for various size wattage resistors or whatnot. Got three set, different sizes. Also got one of these little measuring tools so you can measure the distance of the leads. And then it's got little grooves here so you can form the tool properly. Sorry, I don't know if I had those proper. This is for the 1 watt, other side 2 watt. Anyways, so I was just playing with that. All the resistors are going to be 1/2 inch spacing. Looks like the diodes are also, but these filter resistors are 20, 21, 37, 38. They are about 0.7 inches, so it's a little bit different there. I have gathered the 6 capacitors, filter caps. I grabbed the 4 the largest resistors, 5.1 ohms, according schematic resistors. Snubber cap. It's gray in the build guide, but mine's blue. And it's the only one that really has that spacing properly, so I assume there's no orientation. There's nothing on the silk screen, nothing I can tell from the cap itself. Leads are same length, so hopefully I don't mess that up. Like I said, fairly new. The only experience I really had building anything was the amp amp. I did one of those, and then I did a little headphone amp with my daughter, so that was fun. It's a little portable one, but those are dirty. Anyways, leads are the same length, so I assume that there's no polarity to that. Anyways, and I grabbed the 6 diodes in the kit, 4004s. Those will be going on the board. So that's the next step. Since these are a larger, the parts list calls 2 to 3 watt parts. I'm not sure exactly what these are, but since they're larger and they're going to be dissipating a little bit more heat, I'm going to put some space, a little bit of space between the resistor and the board, just so it has a little bit better ventilation. And per recommendation, also I'll be putting all the tolerance stripes or brown stripes on the right side or bottom of the board, so they all align. If there's a printed resistor value, I will bend the lead, properly, so I can read those after the fact as well. So I'm just gonna pull out these resistors. Remember, some of these parts have lead in them, so don't go licking your fingers or munching on snacks while you're working until you wash your hands. You might have lead. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Just a little reminder, oops, that came a little ugly, that the diodes are polarized, and you can tell by this little stripe here on the end. So that will match the marking, the silk screen marking on the board. I'll start with the smaller components first. So maybe the diodes. Let's give this a shot. Inch. Just kind of line up the diode and the tool. I want the 4004, maybe the last 4 to stick up. It doesn't really matter. Just gonna hold it down, bend, and straight down. Let's see if I selected the right length. And that fits. It's perhaps a tiny bit too big, but there we go. So there's one. I haven't used it with the board this big before. Done it with the amp camp board. It was small enough, it fit okay. Let's see how it works with this. That light's not helping. I'll turn it off. See a little better there. You have the tool, 1/2 inch. Line it up if needed. Spin straight down. Remember, match the white band of the diode onto the silkscreen band. So there's going to be 4 of these in the power section. And then there are 2 additional ones for the regulators. continuing the forming. Hopefully I don't need to show that to you every single time. Wish they had a different camera setup. But then the additional ones are over here, D8 and D7. So there's remember, look for the little stripe on the silk screen. This one is oriented in the other direction, D7, so careful with that one. All the others are facing the same direction. Just as an FYI. So these stripes on D7 and D8 are facing each other, the bands. Those are the diodes. Now for the resistors. They're larger size, so they don't fit in the, is that quarter watt size perhaps, 1/8 watt. Doesn't matter. Anyways, flipped it over. Resistors fit nicely now, and it's about 0.7 inch spacing there. So I'm going to go ahead and try that on the first one, R20. So again, you just kind of set it in there. Hold it with your finger, easier with the thumb. Just push the leads down. Pull it out. Nice bend there. It's again the tolerance side. Tolerance band will all face the same direction on the right. That fits nicely there. Once again, leave a little bit of space underneath these ones, as I know they're going to be for the power, so I want them to kind of have a little bit of ventilation. Just going to go ahead and repeat the same process for the remaining 3 resistors. Orient them in the same direction. Okay, when I did the amp, I got a little piece of cardboard from a box, cut it out, and I stuck it under the resistors, the power resistors, and that way when I soldered it, I had a relatively even spacing, and then I knew also that it wouldn't move on me when I flipped the board around. These ones are a bit snug, so I don't think they'll move. And last one in the 0.7 inch is working great. All right, looks good. I'm going to go ahead and bend the leads to the diodes in the reverse of the board to hold them in place. Just kind of anchor them outward a little bit so they don't pop out when I flip the board over. And we'll go ahead and solder those on. All right. Power resistors, maybe I'll do a little bit too, but the inner leads are really close to each other, so make sure I'm not pulling on the wrong one. Kind of bend this outward a little bit. Just kind of taking the legs and bending them out a little bit. Just give them a little bit of tension to hold them in place. Okay, that's good. I'll flip it around and I'll go ahead and solder it. So I flipped the board over and I'm ready to solder on the diodes and resistors. Please forgive any bad soldering techniques, but seems to work for me. So once again, just go ahead and didn't tip a little bit. Move this magnifying glass out of the way. Clean it off. Just hold the heat on one side. Apply the solder to the other. Wait for it to wet. Pull up. Not too bad. Oh yeah, when I flipped the board over, I made sure none of the components moved. There we go. Easy enough. Usually I have this a little closer to me, so it's easier to do, but since I'm filming, it's making this a little difficult. Just kind of makes it a little shaky is all. Just make sure you're getting enough solder in there to, should be seeping in from the other side. Just a little bit. Anyways, waiting for a package. It's actually going to be for this. It's going to be the, I believe it's the switch I ordered, or trying some different rheostats or pots to have a dimmable power LED. So other plans on this, but if I change rooms or if I clean the brightness or if I can't see the lights, blues do right, then I can change it. Right. Just checking underneath, make sure nothing's moving too much. It's a lot easier when it's closer. Better see what I'm doing. My arms aren't as shaky because it's closer. Just check in, make sure I didn't miss anything. Looks good. I'll check the other side and then I'll cut the leads off. Watch your eyes. These leads are big enough. I'm not too worried about it flying off, hitting my eye, but when you get to smaller resistors, they tend to fly off a little bit more. Okay. So I was concerned R20 and R37 I might have soldered, they might have been touching. But according to the schematic, 20 and 37 are jointed anyways, so I'm not going to worry about that. That is something you want to be aware of though when you are soldering and you look under the board, that you didn't put too much solder and you went into a nearby component where they aren't supposed to be touching. They're recommended on the amp tools list. So if you need those, just pick them up at Amazon. Probably for about $7 or whatever, I don't remember. Just trimming off the bottoms. Good. Now, as you can see, hopefully, left a little bit of space for those power resistors, since they'll be putting off a little bit of heat. Give them some air ventilation. Bend the leads under there a little bit. Hold it in place. Now the filter caps, the longer lead is positive and is marked on the circuit board with the square pad, additionally with the plus sign. Also the stripe on the short end is the negative, so that will go into the round hole. It's kind of like Legos for adults, except Legos don't go pop if you put them in the wrong direction once you power them on. Just kind of fit those in there nicely. Long lead, square pad, positive sign. Just kind of line them up, make sure they look even. Gonna go ahead and bend these a little bit. Hold them in place when I flip it over. No, luckily also these are oriented in the exact same direction, so you got, this one's a little off. Some of them came a little bent when they were in the shipping box. Anyways, they're all lined up, oriented in the same direction, so if you get one right, they'll all be right. Additionally, you can look at the photos, so it looks like the stripe is heading towards the center of the board, and the plain side goes to the edge, bottom edge. Just bend in the bottoms a little bit. Leads down here. Hold it in place while they get soldered on. Flipped it over. Everything seems to have held in place. This will complete our step 6. Once again, that was the rectifier diodes, the filter resistors, gray, or it says gray in the guide, mine's blue, snubber cap, the tall filter caps, and also we did the D7, D8 for the regulator diodes. So perhaps while you're peering on the back side of this, making sure your square pads, which are the positive leads, all have the longer lead coming out. Just a reminder, you want your iron touching the pad and the component lead sticking out, while you kind of get the solder from the opposite end resting on the other corner of the pad and lead. They kind of just float together at that point. All right. I just kind of tap them because if they're iron, they have a higher pitch. And if you missed it, it kind of sounds different. And I'm just going to cut the leads here. These are long enough to hold so they don't shoot you in the eye. Just remember when you're cutting, don't want to cut too low or you're digging into your solder joint. Don't want to weaken that. Just a little nub sticking up is all you really need. Looks good. Right. Start to get a little heavy. Cap turned a little, but they're relatively lined up well enough. This one kind of moved a tiny bit, but it's all good. Go ahead and get this set up, and we'll look at the next step. We're going to go ahead and step 7 warns us of the different build options. I'm going to skip step 8 and go with the recommended step 9 LED reference voltage. So I'm going to grab the LEDs and the nearby caps, C8 and C10. Alright, so I grab the diodes. Well, they are diodes, but LEDs. And then the C8, C10. They're 220 microfarad caps. They're the medium-sized ones. Well, the round, medium-sized round. So this is a large filter. These I call the medium. And there are some small ones about the size of these LEDs that came in the kit. So grab those. Remember, on the diode, on the LED, there's a flat side. It's really hard to tell. It's kind of cut out a little flat edge on one side. That will go on the flat edge of the silk screen. Additionally, that's the short lead. As you can see down here, it's shorter. The long one is positive, and that will go into the square pad. So make sure you get that right or your LED won't work properly. So again, this is D5, D6. So long lead, square pad, short lead, round pad with the cutout on the side of the LED and the silk screen. Here's the cap, long lead, square pad plus side, short lead goes to the round as a stripe. In this case, D6, the stripe faces the LED. The other side is opposite direction. The stripes face inward, the negative. I'll go ahead and solder those up. I'll bend the component leads a little bit. Hold them in place. Flip it around. Alright, now I just flip the board over. And I'm going to solder on the caps. And LEDs, make sure they didn't move. Okay, fall through the board. Hopefully you can see okay. Hot iron on the table. I'm just gonna check the other side of the board, make sure it looks okay, and then I'll cut the leads. So we'll need parts 7815 and 7915. Those are the regulators. I need a heat sink for each, screw and star washer also for each, and then thermal compound or whatnot. So I rated my PC parts box. Arctic Clean. Basically, it's just to clean the surfaces. I just grabbed number 2. I think essentially just rubbing alcohol. A little spreader. Some Q-tips to clean it. Q-tips, kind of linty, but whatever. And various thermal greases that I have: Arctic Silver, OCZ Freeze, Zero Therm, some bundled ones with coolers. Doesn't really matter. If you don't like the grease and you like a pad, since we're not insulating here, we don't need the Keratherm. Arctic actually sells little pads in various sizes and thicknesses. This is 1.5, this is 1, this is 0.5 millimeter thick. Just a little pad. You could actually outline it here, cut it with scissors, put it between there, and it would work great. I might actually do that, but kind of wanted to save it. Not too expensive. This particular one is rated at 6 watts per millikelvin, I believe is what it's at for the thermal conductivity. If that shows up. Anyways, so I just wanted to grab one. These heat sinks are not electrically connected to the circuit board, so it's fine if the metal tabs on the regulators are conducting. So Arctic Silver would actually work. I just want to use up one of these without, I don't really know. Guess I'll just randomly pick one. Let's go with Arctic Silver, I suppose. Got a little bit left in there. So skipping down to step 19. Let's go ahead and do one of these first. I'll do 7815. Why not? Numerical order. It's kind of wrapped in foil. Reminds me of opening a taco or foil chicken or something like that. I'm hungry now. Alright, so here we go. 7815. Looks like they're using the lowest mounting slot. This is symmetrical, so either side is really going to work. So I'll just go ahead and get some rubbing alcohol real quick on the back of the Q-tip. Okay. Flip this over. Just clean the back of it. Make sure none of the lint stays on there. We don't want any of that. I'll go ahead and clean both of the heat sinks while I'm at it. As a matter of fact, I'll open 7915 as well. Make sure none of the lint sticks. Anyways, this probably isn't needed, but coming from CPU, computer side, CPUs generally, you don't want any air gaps in the thermal compound, and you want a nice clean surface with no finger oils. So I'll just go ahead and clean those up. Back side, set it apart because this will evaporate. If you had previously used thermal compound, you can use like Goo Gone first to clean it off, and then the rubbing alcohol to tidy it up. Get that all cleaned up. Alright, doesn't really matter. Just blowing on it to get it to evaporate. I'll just use the other side, kind of wipe it down. Just make sure none of the cotton fibers are straggling along. Don't want those stuck behind there. Granted, this isn't critical, so probably not going to matter too much. Compound, you don't need a whole lot of this. Oops, that's still wet too. Trying to touch the ends. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some here on the foil. It's a little old, so it's kind of oily. There we go. Got more of the meatier stuff on the inside. Grab a little paddle. You don't really need this, you can put it directly on, but I'm just going to go ahead and spread it. Now, the processor, the pressure kind of gets it all spread out, but since this is transistor, we're not going to be putting much pressure on it at all, so go ahead and try and spread it evenly. Sorry, you're not really watching. Not used to the recording. Whatever. That kind of works. So I'll set that aside real quick. Grab the other one. Try not to touch any of the leads. This is an electrical device. Static discharge. Probably not a big deal. Never worn any SD strap in my life, and I don't think I've ever ruined any components. I worked on computers since I was a kid. So. Nice even coat. Wish I got something to wipe my fingers off on. Stuff is really annoying. Anyways. Okay. Grab this, it's going to get everywhere. I'll just rub it in and wash it off later. Nasty stuff. Alright, that was the side I cleaned. Just going to grab one, they're going to go the same way. Set it on there, line up the bottom hole. Drop in your screw. The star washer nut on the opposite end. Just do it a little snug, not too tight. We want a little bit of movement till we get it on the board. There we go. Alright, so hopefully that's coming through okay. Nothing special. Sorry about my voice crackling and sniffles and getting over a cold. But, so that's ready. Next thing is flip it in. I'm going to solder in the heatsink first. Then the leads on the regulators. And then we'll tighten the screw after that, according to the guide. So go back up to step 10, and let's get that going. Okay, so Got to identify which one this is. 7815 on here. Sorry, it's upside down, but yeah, I hope you can read. Everyone should be able to read upside down. 7815. 7815. So that one will go there. And 7915 will go on the opposite end. So let's go ahead and line it up. Middle tab. Through there. Heat sink. Get those holes lined up. There we go. Not too bad. I'm going to kind of push it down, make sure it stays in and whatnot. I gotta flip it over and solder it in. I did change the tip on my soldering iron, and I upped the temp to 800 degrees now because this is relatively thick. I wanted the heat to be able to get the solder in there well enough. So it's gonna be a tricky part. Give me a sec. Alright, so it's gonna be a little tricky because the heatsink wants to fall off. I suppose I could. No, I can't really solder from that side. Jeez. Okay, so. Sorry, this is a new tip. I forgot to tin it earlier. Alright, so I gotta hold the heatsink in place while soldering and getting the solder on there. Let's see. Hold from the underside. And try left-handed solder. Hold the underside with my finger. It is a big heat sink, so I'm not worried about the heat dissipating. And you know what? Let's see. I'm going to use the other helping hand to wedge under here and hold it up. Hopefully that works. Haha. How about that? Just try and make sure this is nice and flat. How about that? Okay, so I just use the other arm of my helping hand, kind of wedged it up there. It's holding it nice. I just need to make sure I don't push it out of the way too hard. Well, I'll at least get one of these legs on. So here we go. Just want to make sure I don't spend too much time here. I don't want the board melting or anything on me. Alright. I think that went okay. Let's try the other side. Put a little bit of solder on the bottom end of my tip. It'll help transfer the heat a little better to this pad. It's a bigger soldering joint. As much heat transfer as I can get. It is a heat sink after all, so let's make sure it flows okay. I think that worked just fine. Once it cools down, I'll kind of wiggle it and make sure it feels snug. Feels snug. Heatsink's slightly warm. I'll call it good. I'll go ahead and solder on those tips. Okay. Remember not to blow on your joints or you get a cold joint. Just let it air cool. I'll repeat the process for the other power regulator. Okay, once again, this is 7915. The metal edge on the back of the there goes on the stripe here on the silk screen. So insert that, heat sink in there, looks good. Flip it over, please. Needs that other helping hand. Shove it under. There we go. Okay. Little soldering lead's a little short, so I have an extra one here I'll go ahead and use. Here we go. Make sure enough flows in there to hold it. I do have a bigger tip, but I think this will work okay. Heat sinks are a little tricky, I suppose. They are meant to absorb the heat, but you need heat in order to solder, so kind of work. There, that one flowed a little easier. There we go. Looks good. Do the tips. Start with the center one this time. Again, you want to make sure your soldering leads aren't crossing from one pad to the other. These look good, so I'll give them a snip. Watch your eyes. So I'm just going to flip it over and tighten the nut, screw. Maybe not too tight, maybe just hand tighten with the use of a screwdriver to hold the screw while you use fingers on the nut. But I'll clean this up a little bit and we'll test the power. So I will go ahead and just show this. I don't even need to hold the washer. It's the star nuts already engaged. Not too tight. Snug. Oh, this one's slipping a little bit. There we go. I don't know how too tight's too tight, but it's barely anything. Okay. Just for it to have good contact. Some of the thermal compound oozed out. That's fine. Squishing out some of the air. See if I get a good shot there. Alright. Power test. So on the power test, we'll be testing from the negative pad here. This is all in the guide from here, and then they said positive side of C9 are good spots to test. I'm gonna wait till someone's home in case I goof up. I guess I do need to kind of get that in there, don't I? I'll go ahead and do that, and then wait till someone's home so I can wire it up. I'm just gonna solder on a quick lead to here and here, or to the pads, just for testing. Yeah. Don't wanna. My case isn't ready yet, so apparently they missed this in the guide. I don't see it, but it's easy enough. Again, sorry it's upside down. I'll flip it around, why not? Here's the primary side, 115 volts, coming out at 22 volts on the secondaries. So, my tabs were bent up during shipping, but I straightened them out so it fits nicely. I'll go ahead and solder that on. I'll just rest it on the table. I won't need this. Just rest it on here. It is taller than everything else, so I'll just make sure I try and keep that center hole lined up and keep it flat while I solder. It does rock a little bit, but I'll just hold it down while I solder there. Turn my iron back on. Use up a little bit of this I've got left over. Double check, make sure I put it in correctly. Alright. Good to go. I don't have a screw, just make sure it lines up, but it looks good. Okay, my iron's ready. It's going to be 4 for each side. Okay. Maybe I'll do one of each of the corners first. Kind of like tightening lug nuts on your wheels in your vehicle. All right. So when you are done soldering, you do want to kind of pull up a little bit, not out, with the iron. Pull up on the lead. Bigger tip is a lot faster that's for sure. That's it. I'll wait. So now I will wait till someone gets home for the test of the power. I'll make sure the fuse is installed and already. So parts bag, fuse holder, inlet, fuse, fuses here. They did include two, which was nice, because I might blow one and I have a spare. So I'll grab one. The fuse holder does have a slot for the spare, so I guess I'll put that in there as well. Insert in. So it's kind of loose, I suppose. Huh. Maybe I'll just leave it out for now. Line up the fuse with the side that has the contact. There's a metal contact down in there. Fuse side. Snap, crackle, and pop. Alrighty. Now for the AC test. I'm in the US, so neutral is white or gray. So I got a little piece of white wire here, and live is black. So I got that ready to go. I haven't soldered it on yet, so I'm holding it. And let's see, according to the guide, live is the AC pad towards the middle. So that's this one here. And then neutral is the one closer to the corner. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and solder this up just for a test. And we can get our AC test going on. So black is live, that's ready. White is neutral. So let's see this again. Live is black. Should go towards the middle. Okay. So that one will go to this pad. Here. Let me double check that. Live, which is black in the US, goes towards the middle. L, live, black, middle. Okay, neutral, which is white or gray, towards the corner. Okay, so that's ready to go. I installed the fuse earlier. I just need to connect it up, see if it lights up. I borrowed power cord and I'll go ahead and flip it on. Hopefully nothing bad happens. That's a good sign. Lights are on. No blown fuse. Alright, let's do this. According to the guide, I'm going to measure positive rail from here, the pad closest to R39, the negative probe, and then the positive goes on the square or the positive side of C9. So it's, oops, DC volts. Okay, positive C9, 16.89 volts. So that's a good test. And then the negative rail in step 12, black goes on R13. And red goes on R14. Negative 16.97 volts. So that's a good test. All right.